Do you talk to your children about money? Are you guilty of sending the wrong message? We are joined by Siebold, the author of How Money Works, to talk to him, or How Money Works, excuse me, to talk to him about what he calls the 5 money lies to stop telling our children. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, good afternoon.
Oh, so before we get into your tips, at what age should parents actually start talking to their children about money?
I think about 10 years old is a pretty good number. I think they start to understand the basics of how money works.
Okay, and so you say that there are certain things that parents are already doing that we need to bring to a halt. And let's start with some of those. You say stop telling your children they'll never be wealthy. Explain.
I think a lot of parents do that. We hear that all the time in seminars around the country, that the parents are saying, you're never going to be rich, you're never going to be, really wealthy, but you can settle for less. Stop telling them that. You're living in America. This country was built by entrepreneurs with visions of solving problems, and as a result, we have a lot of wealthy people, more wealthy people in this country than anywhere in the world.
Okay, next tip then, because you have a list of them. So what's the next one?
Well, I think that teaching your kids that life is fair. Any association that life is fair is obviously a lie. Life is not fair. It's not a level playing field. It's not fair. Unfortunately, it's never going to be. It'd be great if it was, but it's not, and it's never going to be. So start teaching them that life is not fair, but you have to equal the odds. You have to level your own playing field. But in this country, you can do that, especially in a great city like Chicago, a great business town like Chicago.
It's funny, too, because, I think that kids start thinking life should be fair because we do try to make everything fair at home for them, don't we? But then that's almost misleading in a way as well.
It really is. There's just no way to really reconcile that. It's the Easter Bunny, it's Santa Claus. It just doesn't really exist. And so we got to be very, very careful with what we tell our kids, because they take it into adulthood.
Okay.
And it can be very dangerous.
Right. As we know, some adults who maybe are a little more spoiled in certain ways than they should be as a result. Okay. The other one you say is stop telling your children they won't be able to have fun if they're focused on money. Explain that.
Well, in a free market economy like the U.S. and a great business town like Chicago, it's all about solving problems. That's how you get wealthy in this country. And so you can have fun solving problems, thinking about how to become an entrepreneur, how to solve a problem, maybe even work for a company and how to help the company solve a problem. This country has all these different problems going on, and it's just begging for someone to come along and solve them. And that's a fun thing to do. So start telling your kids that problem solving, which creates wealth, can be fun.
Okay, and then you say stop teaching your children that rich people are smarter.
Yeah, I've been interviewing rich people for 37 years, all over the world, over 1,300 interviews, and I will tell you in no uncertain terms that most of them, sometimes, the Elon Musks of the world, the Steve Jobs, there are people that are exceptionally intelligent, but for the most part, they're just like the rest of us. They're just people that have high levels of ambition, they chase their passions, and they solve people's problems, and as a result, they become wealthy.
Okay, and you also say stop always comforting your children. What do you mean by that?
Well, if you're going to go out in the rough and tumble business world and stake your own claim, which so many people do in this country, again, it built this country, those people built this country, you're going to have to get used to criticism. You're going to have to get used to people picking on you, saying unfair things about you online or in any other medium, and you're going to have to get used to that. So be careful you're not over-comforting your kids, because you're sending them out into a pretty tough place, a pretty tough world, especially of entrepreneurship and problem solving, and they're going to need to be ready for that.
Okay, so you've given us the tips. We're starting to talk to our children at the age of 10 about money, but how do you make them responsible about money at such a young age? Where do you begin at the age of 10?
I think Chores is a really good one. I mean, growing up in Chicago, my mom still lives in Chicago today, and we grew up having chores like a lot of kids did. And you got 50 cents for this or $1 for this, and maybe more now today. Shoveling snow in Chicago, we used to get $2 or $3 shoveling driveways. And I think taking that money and then helping them understand that, like, for this money, you would pay so much in taxes, and for this money, you need to allocate so much to invest and so much for your expenses, and teach them the basics. Even with very small numbers, kids can learn. They're very smart.
Okay, and if anybody else wants to learn, they can go to your website, which is howmoneyworks.com. Thanks for joining me. Great to talk to you. Good advice.
Thanks so much.
Coming up, why DaBaby is being dropped